Showing for the Baltimore Ravens defense under new head coach Jesse Minter this past weekend in their preseason game. They beat the Eagles 24-7. And the Ravens D held Philly to only 6 first downs all game. The Eagles punted on 8 of 9 drives, not including a 2-play drive to end the first half. It's the preseason, but it's football, and it gets us one step closer to week 1. Jason McCourty joining us here on First Take. So, J-Mac, I don't want to overreact, but what do you make of this defensive performance that you saw from the Ravens?
It's something in a sense of, yes, it is just a preseason, so you don't need to break down all the stats and say they held them to this, they were 0-4 on third down and all those different things. But I think for a Baltimore Ravens football team that has a superstar quarterback and Lamar Jackson with a defense that for their standards failed a season ago, they were ranked 30th in pass defense, 18th in scoring. Like, those numbers for the Ravens are usually top 10 numbers. So you want to come in, if you're Jesse Minter, who's now the head coach, but also the play caller on the defensive side of the ball, it's about setting a foundation and setting a tone and an identity for this defense that no matter who's on the field, the starters or the fourth string guys, there's a standard that has to be upheld. So I think for them, preseason-wise, Minter comes from the Chargers where they were top 10 in damn near every stat. Yeah. That's the expectation for a Baltimore Ravens defense. And I think you set that tone when you go out there for the first time for anybody to see a Jesse Minter-led defense in the purple for it to look like that, and they dominated in that game.
Kenny, is it something or is it nothing?
It's hard for me to put a lot of stock in the preseason, but what I will say is this. Jesse Minter checked the box. And that's what you want to see from a coaching, game day operations standpoint, from an identity that you want to see them work toward and build. You saw some semblance of that on the field. To me, for the Baltimore Ravens defensively, a lot of this is going to come down to health. Nick Wiggins is dealing with an injury right now. Nnamdi Madubuike is working his way back from a neck injury that we thought could be career-threatening. So making sure that you have your pressure players on the front end and the back of that defense is going to go a long ways to determining how much success Baltimore can have on that side of the ball. But ultimately, I do think that the Baltimore Ravens are on the right track. I don't put a lot of stock in the preseason, as we mentioned before, and especially this time in the calendar because the defense is typically ahead of the offense, especially when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They're installing a whole new system under new coordinator Sean Mannion, so there are new learnings there. But I like where the Baltimore Ravens are headed. And for Jesse Minter, this is a huge, huge season because the stakes could not be higher in Baltimore for a first-time head coach.
Yeah, Danny Hurley is a phenomenal coach, UConn national champion. I've stolen something from him. He says, run everywhere, win everything. So they did that. They ran everywhere and they won everything. Like, that's great. Like, play well at all times. This was nothing. That was a setup to say this was nothing. And I'm going to tell you why. It's nothing. Let's connect some dots here. Jesse Minter, why is he the coach of the Baltimore Ravens and not John Harbaugh? I believe that they looked at the Seattle Seahawks and said, that looks familiar. What is that? Oh, that's the guy that was here previously in Mike McDonald. Mm-hmm. He's young. He's aggressive. He's a phenomenal defensive coach. We let him walk out the door. We can't do that again. And the again part is Jesse Minter, who worked for both Harbaughs, who was in Baltimore, who was then in L.A. with the Chargers, and he looked and coached like the guy that just won the Super Bowl. And they thought it was time. And they love him because of the fact that he coaches great defensively. So when the Baltimore Ravens look great on defense, that is why a guy who was the coach of their team for, 17, 18 years, and John Harbaugh, is no longer there, and this guy is. They want to look like the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. So when they look good on defense, that's what I expect them to do. So this was nothing for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's nothing. I will push back on why John Harbaugh is no longer there. I understand that there is the Mike McDonald connectivity that everybody's excited about. They call him the Sean McVay on the defensive side of the ball, and you want to get your share of that. But the reality is John Harbaugh is not in Baltimore because the organization believes that he underachieved when you have a future Hall of Famer at quarterback in Lamar Jackson. And let's be honest, folks, when you got 2 MVPs, that's a guaranteed gold jacket at the end of your career. 5 years from when he hangs them up, he's going to be walking in Canton. Yet you're not talking about them being able to get to the Super Bowl and only one time in the conference championship. There was some reports of workplace tension between the quarterback and the head coach. And when it comes to the verses in today's NFL between the head coach and the quarterback, when you got a guy that's going to wear a gold jacket under center, they're going to side with him. So that's why John Harbaugh's no longer in Baltimore, but that's also why the stakes get ratcheted up for Jesse Minter, because Lamar Jackson does not have a contract extension in place. And the owner of the team said the priority for the franchise was getting that done. The fact that we're not talking about that being done for a player that has a no franchise tag clause and a no trade clause going into what is the penultimate year of his contract means that the product on the field has to be something that the player believes in moving forward. Because if not, it opens the door to some uncomfortable conversations that are going to be had in that Ravens franchise.
But that's why, to me, what you guys are saying is so wrong, because all of these things matter. You say they brought Jesse Minter over to have a dominant defense. You're checking the boxes as you go along. He's not only a play caller on defense, but he also is a first-time head coach. So every time you go out there to represent yourself, especially the first time, you want it to look right. Like if Jesse Minter there now is a head coach and defensive play caller, and they go out there and they're blowing assignments and they look like it's a circus, you're going to say, well, now this guy is overwhelmed. So I think, to your point, the Lamar Jackson of it all, getting to that, like all of these things have to align for Lamar to want to choose the Baltimore Ravens going forward.
Yeah, because he has not signed that contract, essentially.
So if you tell me this is something because it's going to lead to this play that we saw without Jalen Hurts, without Devontae Smith, without Saquon Barkley for the Eagles.
Without all the Ravens guys, too.
Okay, so if that play, that version of it, leads to regular season success, and Lamar in his head, making this up, says, I need to score 27 a game to win. If that number is now down to 24, and Jesse Minter has cut off 3 points every game that he needs to score, well, then their relationship's going to get a hell of a lot better.
Very true.
No doubt.
So if you're going to tell me, if you're going to sit there, Jason, and say, and CC, this is what's to come, then it's going to directly impact the most important thing for this franchise, which is number 7.
See, I don't, and that's the part that I'm not comfortable saying. I don't know that what we saw over the weekend from the Baltimore Ravens defense is an indicator of what they're going to be in the regular season. It's still TBD. So that's why I think it's a nothing verdict.
For sure, but it's just, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing ever. Like, I'm not trying to overreact to one preseason game, but it's a step in the right direction.
For sure. As you said, checks the box, and that's all you're supposed to do in the preseason. Get in, get out of there, check the box, move on to the next week.
And don't embarrass yourself like the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, don't do that.
That helps.
Not hard to do. All right, we're going to leave this one here.
J-Mac, one more. If the Bengals, this is their best case scenario, they get a healthy Joe Burrow all season long. What are they?
We're looking at a team that's competing with the Baltimore Ravens and say we're going to be the division champs. I love this team, especially on the offensive side with Joe Burrow. They've made improvements on the defense. I still have to see exactly what this defense looks like before we start saying, all right, this is a team that's going to represent the AFC and play in the Super Bowl. But Joe Burrow out there is just such a difference maker physically and mentally.
Dexy has made them a sexy pick. Yeah. They also have an easy schedule, comparatively speaking. Are you one of these Bengals believers?
Yeah, I'm a believer in the Bengals right now. Given what they're doing right now, I think Cassius Howell, the young player who also was dinged for having short arms, seems to be pretty effective. It doesn't really matter. So between him and Ruben Bain, next year some short arm guy's going to get drafted super high. But I think that defense is the question. Like if they have a healthy quarterback, they'll be great. But the real question is, can they stop people?
What do you think?
There's so much, additions on the defense that it's hard not to get excited. What I also think helps them is that as much as we talk about Mike McCarthy and we talk about Todd Monken and we talk about Jesse Minter, those are 3 completely new coaching staffs in the division. So even if you don't love Zach Taylor, there's at least consistency from last year to this year where the other teams don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, even when Burrow wasn't there last year, their offense was not the reason. Joe Flacco had them in all these games.
Pro Bowler Joe Flacco.
I mean, just how much better is the defense going to be? Dexter Lawrence, a really good player.
Similar to Dallas.
But I think we've sort of looked at him as sort of the reason why everything is going to turn around.
That'll be the reason why they'll turn around. But I do think that we're underselling how good the defense has to be a championship contender. Like, to be competitive, they just have to be mediocre. To win a Super Bowl, they're going to have to be top 10.
In that conference. Coming up, first take.